That's it. We're live. Welcome to Voyage of the Geek. One day late, thanks to the throes of death that I was in over the weekend.
Well, I was going to ask you, how have you been? And I think that's a bit of a loaded question with a very predictable answer.
Yeah, so I'm firing on, shall we say, 3 cylinders today. But I was ready to stick a knife in it and call it quits at one point. Had a dodgy vindaloo, shall we say, in the form of a dodgy piece of pizza, I think it was, the other day. And I was totally non-compos mentis for 3 days over the weekend. First weekend to myself that I had, and spent it violently ill, wanting to die in bed. But I've crawled my way out of the bedroom, and we're only 24 hours late.
Awesome.
This time. So how have you been, sir?
I've been pretty good compared to the state that you've been in. So yeah, was busy really before, and now it's calmed back down to its normal, relaxed kind of level. I did have a week or so last week where every single day there was something going on, 9 to 5, and then 5 till 9 afterwards.
Yeah.
Day after day after day after day. I did about a week of that. So.
And we're moving towards the silly season, the Christmas silly season, where it all ramps up again.
Yeah, and it even all ramps up at work towards the end of the year. So
yeah. So I've missed my my duties, my introduction duties. We are Voyage of the Geek, where we cover all things in the geekosphere that we come across in life, and we come to the table every week, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Mondays. To share those things with one another from a very unique perspective that we tend to come across things. Dan Miller, myself, Dave Scotland, and we stream out on YouTube live, but we also, the show's available on iTunes, Stitcher, and many more platforms as we find them. Hopefully some new video platforms as well. We should have a look at Twitch. Get into that Twitch action.
Yeah. And also the date. We have to remember to list the date.
That's right. Today's date being the 25th of October 2016. And as I said, this is a Tuesday instead of a Monday, so we're a day late on our normal show. But when you're the writers, directors, producers, executive producers of the show, rank has its privileges.
That's right. And if you're violently ill, that takes precedence, it would appear.
Absolutely.
All right.
So I want to kick things off with some stuff that's been happening in the upcoming, under the heading of upcoming, where self-confessed Star Wars fans and or maybe goes a little deeper than that, card-carrying Star Wars fans. And of course there was a fantastic new... There's a fantastic new Rogue One trailer that released the other week. In fact, I might throw it up, but we'll play it back with sound down and explore some of the things there, because there's been some developments in the last week or so in relation to the Star Wars franchise. Disney sort of making it a habit of wheeling out their suits onto the stage in front of crowds of people, where they seem to present them with release schedules for or their Pixar movies, or their Marvel movies, all of their Star Wars movies. In fact, it's pretty impressive when they put up a big screen of all of those franchises together.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And there's also Disney movies as well. Disney have gone into reimagining all of their animated films live. They're gonna make a Little Mermaid live, so it's a live film. When I say live, I mean it's not cartoon. It's action, real live action. Beauty and the Beast they're making with Hermione from Harry Potter.
Yeah, right.
There's quite a few actually. That I think Maleficent was the first one to sort of get the ball rolling,
the theme happening,
and they've gone really hard for it. So their release schedule is absolutely ridiculous. But I guess it's made more impressive by the fact that they own so many franchises now. They own so much that if we say Disney release, we're really talking about a lot of things that they wouldn't have been able to release had they not bought these properties recently.
So, just what do we think about that in terms of, Hollywood being dry of ideas, and doing reboots and stuff? This is a bit of a disguised kind of a reboot, repackage what you've already bought. This time, without the animation.
It's like they're not willing to, and so far, nor do they really have to take risks.
Yeah.
Because it's guaranteed that they're going to make X amount. I think they've got it. They've probably got the boffins to work it out down to $1 million. You know, they're really good at this stuff now, and I definitely get where you're coming from, because when you look at the release schedule for Pixar films, Cars with a number on the end of it, Toy Story with a number on the end of it, they just keep looking back to their original properties. I think they're even talking about a what's the little robot one again?
WALL-E.
Yeah, WALL-E 2.
Okay.
Which would be an interesting film. I mean, I'm not wanting to see some of these films. And I guess that's got a lot to do with how well they've made these films to start with. That anything Pixar does is impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, Disney's playing it safe in a lot of areas there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit. I don't know. It's a bit disturbing. I think you want those sort of people to be taking risks, to constantly kind of be pushing the envelope rather than looking backwards all the time. I don't know. Maybe they think that they're doing that by not having the animation and going with live action.
This is playing at half speed. That's why
okay.
it's a little bit stuttery. So what are some of the things you've seen the trailer? Yeah.
No, I have not
you
seen
haven't
the trailer.
The new
now.
one. So I won't be able to play it for you. Otherwise, Uncle YouTube's going to get disappointed with me.
That's right.
But we can certainly play it without sound and slow down here a little bit. Some of the things that we found out of it, found out about the story, found out about the film from this particular trailer, is the storyline of the main character. Her father turns out to be a pivotal person in relation to the design of the Death Star.
Yes. Okay. So I knew that.
Taken away when she's quite young.
Yeah.
So that to me reads as something that could be an interesting narrative thing to explore. That she's got to go after the plans, but in reality, is she going to go after the father and try and rescue him? And so there's some really interesting narrative things that it's always good to see an Aussie in a Star Wars film, especially when he's one of the main bad guys, Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, right. Show me again.
Skip it back here. This guy here.
Yeah, right.
Been around for a long time in Australian film. He's easily one of our better actors. One of our better homegrown actors, and not so much. It's hard to call people like Chris Hemsworth a homegrown actor, because he really got his movie cred overseas.
Yeah.
He really, as far as Australian cred, it was Home and Away and things like that. He first broke onto the scene as Captain Kirk's father in the first Star Trek film, and died in the first 10 minutes of the film. Oops, spoiler, bad luck.
So, yeah, with the architect of the Death Star, I think is a really cool angle, because we're exploring more of the universe.
Yep.
We're not repeating the universe. So yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I don't know if they do Little Mermaid, should they go and explore some other part? They can do it in the same world.
I found out a bit of trivia through the week. The Death Star is powered by the same crystals that they use inside the lightsabers.
Oh, okay.
The Kyber crystals.
Okay.
That's what gives it its great power.
Right.
That's why it can blow a planet in half. I found that out by reading an interesting article that came through Facebook on, I thought this was a fantastic shot. Some people think this is potentially Obi-Wan. But something tells me there's not enough time in the timeline. I can bring that up, actually. I've got an image of that.
So for the people on the podcast...
Oh, that's right, yes. We're looking at a massive 1,000-foot-high statue of what looks like a Jedi warrior lying down, half buried in the sand in some desert scene.
bit Lord of the Ringsy.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Big gigantic statues from bygone eras.
Very old world, and it could harken back to the Old Republic time, maybe. But yeah, the what was I saying? What was I saying? Lost my point.
Can't remember either.
Oh yes, no. The article I was reading is in relation to why is Sith lightsabers always red.
Oh, okay. And the answer?
Apparently, what happens is the Jedis, when they're young, they go to a certain place, sacred place, and that's where the kyber crystals are, and there's a connection.
Okay.
They find one another.
Okay, cool. All right.
And then the color of the lightsaber, or the color of the crystal, is due to the connection that they have with the Jedi, and that's why some are green, some are blue, and then one is purple.
Okay, so if you go up there with a bad attitude, you get
Well, no. The red ones. You mean the red?
Yeah.
Yeah, the red happens because the Sith can't find them. They can only steal them.
Ah.
And as soon as you steal a kyber crystal,
they're second hand.
They don't have the connection, so they revert back to their raw state.
Okay.
Which is red.
So they can't find them.
No. So it's a sacred temple. It's the sacred Jedi temple that the children get taken to.
Right.
To get the. There's an episode in.
But if they did go there, they could probably get their hands on those lovely fresh green ones.
Yes. Yeah. The crisp, fresh.
Straight out of the fridge. Straight picked from the farm.
Yeah. Fresh off the farm. There's an episode of. I'm gonna say, not Rebels, not the 3D animated series Star Wars Rebels, the new one that Disney are doing, that they're up to series 3 at the moment. The one that came before it, which was like the Clone Wars.
Yep.
And there was an episode right towards the very end where a bunch of younglings get taken to this place, and the whole episode is based on they have to go into this labyrinth, and the crystal calls to them, and they pair up, but there was only 4 crystals, but there were 5 younglings or something like that. So the idea was to not miss out.
Okay.
But yeah, that law all
so the
exists.
One that misses out, kills one of the other ones and ends up with a red crystal.
Probably. The theory falls over when Grievous is running around with blue and green lightsabers in Attack of the Clones.
So what happens there?
Well, I love this law stuff where they call it law, like it existed before all things. Well, like Lucas, you tend to make shit up. He's renowned for doing it. Someone will ask him in an interview, the connection between this character and this character is profound in the story. Well, yes, that's because... And he's making the shit up on... And then it gets written into law.
Okay.
But he's very good at sticking to law.
Okay.
And he's also very good at sort of joining the dots and making sure that the law doesn't cross over too often.
Maybe the purple one's a third hand.
The purple one's a result of Samuel L. Jackson getting his way on set. He quite literally turned around to Lucas and said, I want a purple one. And how do you say no to Sam? I think that's an actual quote from the behind the scenes of Attack of the Clones is whatever Sam wants, Sam gets.
All right, so I reckon the way that it goes is you start with the green crystals for the good guys.
Yeah.
You hand them to the bad guys and they go red.
Yeah.
But then if one of the good guys gets it back again, it goes purple.
Sure. Sure. It's almost like Lucas said it himself. So yes, there's some fantastic imagery in the new trailer. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Really excited about this film because the director of this film is one of us. He's a visual effects guy. He's the guy that did Godzilla. His first independent breakout sort of film helmed as a director was Monsters, which I still haven't seen yet, but it's got pretty good acclaim. But he is a visual effects guy, he's a composite artist. I found him long before he was a director. He did a 10-part training series about all these tips and secrets that he used. He single-handedly did the visual effects for a 2-part BBC documentary on Attila the Hun.
Yeah, right.
Including battle scenes with waves of people going across a field, attacking one another. There were camp scenes with hundreds and hundreds of warriors with tents and campfires and everything. He did the whole thing in 3D Studio Max and After Effects.
That's crazy.
I've got to show you this 10-part series, man. It's addictive to watch. And he's one of these guys. What I loved about him and his training method is he teaches you, and this is how I know that he's going to be a wonderful director. There was this one shot that he was teaching you a bit of tracking of this castle or this fort on a hillside, and the fort was CG, but the footage in the hillside was all real. So he needed to and it was a moving camera, and all of these horsemen, group of about 30 or 40 horsemen, ride up, and the camera pans as they ride to reveal the castle on the hill, and he tracked it. He put a little bit of atmospherics in there, and he said, "Okay, now I'm going to move to what's more important." And he said, if you'll notice how little time I spent on that, that's because the story is about Attila the Hun, and he just rode up with 40 warriors. People aren't going to be looking at the flags that aren't blowing on the castle, which is way off 2 miles away.
Yep.
The story's here, right? I have to pick my battles.
Yeah.
That's how you know this guy is a visual storyteller and more than just a visual effects artist. Very talented guy. Gareth Edwards.
It sounds vaguely familiar. There's a couple of people that sort of did these one-man film armies. There was another one, and I've got now no idea how to explain it, but it was in South America, and some alien landing thing going on.
That
anyway,
might be him.
Well,
Monsters.
Oh, yeah, maybe it is.
It's Monsters.
Yeah, maybe it is.
It's his.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And when you talk
Deja vu, the circle has now closed.
I haven't seen it, but it's all about some kind of landing, some kind of alien thing, and they have to go in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He did it all himself. Just an actor, he took a couple of actors and his cam.
Yeah. And it off the back of that, where he's really cheeky is he asked to do Godzilla. They said no. Right. So he said he got together with some people and made a trailer and took it to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And it blew the roof off the place. And the trailer was made of that shot with the guys jumping out the back of the C-130. Is it C-130, the transporter?
No idea.
They jump out the back. They got the red smoke trailing from coming down through the clouds. And then there's this one fleeting glance of the side of Godzilla through the clouds as they're going down. And then you hear this big roar. Godzilla. That's it. And it was enough for him to actually secure the rights to do the film. Cheeky, but
I think District 9 might have been similar like that. They made a very short, sort of very low budget film, and I think a trailer that was a little bit more high budget. That
was it Peter Jackson or Spielberg that said, "Here's your money. Here's 40 million. Go make it."
There's some story. There's a
story
connection like that. Yeah.
Blomkamp, the director that did it.
Yeah, right.
He did the one with the ring in the sky with the what's that? Where all the rich people live up in space on this habitat ring thing. They've got a cure for everything and they live forever. But
Elysium?
all of the poor people are down here.
Not
that was his Elysium.
Yeah,
that was his second film.
Yeah.
Very stylistically similar.
Yeah.
He has a style. He did Chappie.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Same guy.
You can see the same thing.
Same style.
And in fact,
same South African guy from District 9, the main guy, he's Chappie.
Plus they had I haven't seen Chappie, but they have in it the Antwoord.
Yes,
Die
Antwoord.
Antwoord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys are friggin' crazy. Have you seen some of their video clips?
I've seen some of the just shenanigans in general.
Yeah. I was talking with
don't ever breach the stage. You take your life in your own hands with those guys.
I don't know. I just love their characters that they've got. They've got these South African bogans. That these sort of suburban bogans is their character. Anyway, I was talking about it with some South African friends, and it's pretty funny. It's a pretty good joke that they.
The movie's pretty. It's a touching tale.
Chappie.
Yeah. It's a very touching tale. It's because
those guys do that. The Antwoord.
Yeah.
They do a lot of video clips, and they're acting in all of their video clips. So
you don't for a second get the feeling that they're not actors.
Yeah.
Not in Chappie.
That's right. Yeah.
And the guy that plays Vickis in District 9, he's Chappie. in a suit.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Wow.
he does.
That's cool.
And so they're acting to him.
Yeah, okay.
And he's a very powerful actor. He's a very, very good actor.
Yeah.
Cool. Good mates with the director. So this is the timeline of Rogue One. I found this image today, which I thought was interesting. So that it takes place in between, obviously, Episode 3 and Episode 4. But I would hazard a guess that it takes place very close to Episode 4, because the many Boffin spies that died to bring. Oh no, that's Jedi, isn't it? That's the second lot of plans. It is too. It's the second lot of plans where she says many Boffin spies died to bring us this information.
Yeah, that is in Jedi. Yes,
that's the second. Must be the second lot of plans, because clearly they would have boarded up the exhaust port.
Yeah, that's right.
So we needed more plans.
Over it. Yeah.
So what I found really interesting is, and definitely, I don't want to go back to the trailer, but there's a scene in the trailer where Ben Mendelsohn's character walks up to the old boy while the little girl's hiding in the bushes. He gets taken away, obviously. When does that happen? Because there's a scene in the Clone Wars where the the bug-looking, what are they called? The guys with the wings. At one point, they handed over to Dooku the plans for the Death Star.
That's right. Yeah.
So it makes you wonder where that scene happened. If it's a flashback by her to her, where in the timeline did that happen? Did it happen during the Clone Wars? When did they start building the Death Star and this sort of stuff? So I hope that's resolved in the film. But that's the timeline there. This is probably a little bit more impressive. This is that one of those scenarios where I was talking about, with these higher ups standing on a stage declaring the release schedules. You can see Force Awakens there, 2015.
Yep.
Rogue One happening 2016. 2017 we will see Star Wars Episode 8, and then 2018 is the first spin-off of the... Not spin-off. The first spin-off is this year.
Rogue One.
It's an anthology one.
Right.
First one is Han Solo.
Okay.
So it's the Han Solo story.
All right. Okay.
They've already cast young Han Solo. Let me show you what he looks like. In fact, I should be able to put young Han Solo now, and Google should really know. There he is. So that is the guy playing young Han Solo. There is a shot.
Who's
Let's see
that?
if I can find him. He's a young actor. I've seen him in a couple of things. I can't remember his name actually. Where is it? Eldon Ehrenreich.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. I've seen him in a couple of things. I saw him in this. He was really good in this. It's a recent film, Hail Caesar.
Yep.
With
George Clooney.
George Clooney.
Yeah.
And he plays a young cowboy stuntman that gets thrust in front of the camera when they keep running out of actors, and it's the comedy is about this political behind the cameras stuff that's going on with actors and things like that. But anyway, he's the new Han Solo, and you can see here, it's not a bad choice. And I've seen him act. I've seen his mannerisms.
Okay.
I think he's going to pull it off. I think there's a video where he actually tries to... I think he does Harrison Ford, and it's all there. Yeah, apparently it's a very good casting. They've recently, as much as a week ago, announced young Lando, which is this guy.
Cool. Okay.
And what's really funny about this guy is his class photo from his yearbook.
Yeah.
Star Wars T-shirt.
Oh, cool.
He's a very popular guy. He's the guy from Community, the sitcom Community, about a community college. But he's also a rapper, and he's a very good actor. Very good. His comedy time is brilliant, which means he's probably going to be a very good dramatic actor as well.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he brings a better performance than Billy D. Williams. Apparently one of the worst actors when it comes to remembering their lines. Like he would have 4 words to say, and he'd be like, line. He just couldn't remember. He could never ever remember his lines. And when I think it got so bad that when he was flying the Millennium Falcon in Jedi, because when you're flying, you've got the cockpit here in front of you, and you've got to look out there, and then you've got to look down here.
Yeah, right.
He got away with it all written on the cockpit.
Right, he's got a teleprompter or something or other.
His forward lines were there. So yeah, they've been cast for the next one, the next spin-off, which is 2018.
So that's the pair of them in that film.
Yes.
Okay, that could be cool.
Yeah, I believe so. Then 2019, we see
trading the Millennium Falcon and betting on it.
Yeah,
whatever,
probably.
like
probably.
That'd be a pretty cool angle.
And some conjecture is, are they going to rely on those embedded lines from the original films as the storyline? Some people think that that's probably not the best way to go. Like a story based around the Kessel Run.
They
did in 12 parsecs or some shit. Or that he takes the Millennium Falcon off him as the main story.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. No, invent something new.
Yeah.
Invent something new.
That's too similar to...
because those things were always just throwaway lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to fill in a bit of space.
It's like those time travel ones where you're spending all this valuable exposition instead of on narrative, it's on... Oh, toasters! You're still using toasters, are you? You know, it's like, fuck, who cares about what they're toasting bread with? Or
Red Letter Media, who's just really super insightful about this, has two things to say. One is about lightsabers, and their sort of opinion was, frickin' lightsabers. There should be just like laser swords, and you don't have to worship them. You don't have to have them in every movie. They're cool and stuff, but they don't have to. The world doesn't have to revolve around them.
Yeah.
And the same one was with Darth Vader, where their opinion was that Darth Vader isn't the pivot of all of these stories. Is not Darth Vader. That's not where it's pivoting on.
Yeah.
He's just a thug.
Yeah.
He's just a thug that the Empire hires, and he should be kind of left as just that big thug dude in those movies. You can kind of reference him now and again, but he doesn't have to be the be-all and end-all of what's going on.
I saw a headline, I didn't read the article, but the headline said, when are we going to see Darth Vader as a bad guy again? You know, because he's not, you know, he's complexed and all this shit now. No, he started out as being a bad guy. He was a thug, as you say.
And even in Star Wars, I mean, the reason why he's black and he throws people against walls and he blows up planets is because he is the fucking bad guy, and it's easy to tell, and that's the kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah, he was unhinged. You never knew what he was going to do.
And it's just simple and straightforward, and it's obvious, and it's like, he's the bad guy, right? Let's move on.
Yeah.
You know, we got that worked out.
Too many layers to your bad guy is problematic.
Yeah.
It's problematic because I don't want to care about him.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
I want to appreciate his position, right? Because bad guys don't try to be bad. In their world, they're doing good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I don't need all the layers and the family connections and family trees and trade federation bullshit. So, yeah, this is pretty much the the graphic, albeit primitive, thanks to whoever it was that provided it on the interwebs. So, yeah, every other year we see a release.
Okay.
In fact...
So they got release, then they got the spin-off thing, and they got...
These years are out. These years are out of whack by one. So that's probably not...
What, 17, 18, 19?
Yeah, that's probably not accurate. Hang on a second.
19, episode
15,
9.
Oh, no, that's right. Yeah. So the last thing I'll say about the Star Wars releases and the upcoming releases for Star Wars is my concern. I've got some concern. The next Star Wars main trilogy film, Episode 8, that started principal photography about a week after the release of Episode 7, is going to be directed by... It was written and directed by this guy, which I believe that's Rian Johnson.
Okay. R-I-A-N.
Yeah, I thought it was Rian, and it might be, I don't know, I think it's Rian, right? And when I first heard his name, I thought, who's this guy? I've never heard of this guy before. And so I checked his lineage. I checked what he's done. And you're not mistaken. That's all he's directed. And the first 3 of those are short films, albeit maybe they had budgets, maybe they had decent actors. I don't know, but they're short films back in 2002, 2001, 96. His first major one that I can even recognise there is Looper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember Looper.
With Bruce Willis and Gordon Levitt, the young guy that used to be the kid in Third Rock from the Sun. He was in the last Batman film as the cop. I think he goes on to become Batman right at the very end. He finds the Batcave, credits roll.
Like I said, I can vaguely remember Looper.
He did a couple of episodes of Breaking Bad. He wrote, I think if we come down to writer, you'll find that he has written episode 8 and episode 9.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure he's directing episode 9 as well.
Okay.
So how big a risk is this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate backing this guy to carry this franchise through?
To write and direct.
Wow. That is... This worries me a bit. This absolutely worries me a bit. And because, you know, it's sacred. It's sacred stuff.
Yeah. I suppose the balance to that is that... you know, we try and get some new fresh blood and, you know, try to move away from, this is the thing we were complaining about before, the same old, where you rinse and repeat the same stuff and maybe getting some new fresh craziness in there. Yeah, like you say, it's a bit of a risk, but
it could pay off.
Maybe it pays off.
Yeah, it could pay off. He's, I mean, between you and me, Looper didn't cut it for me.
I can't remember it.
I didn't get into it. I didn't like it. Although it's almost impossible to create a good film with Bruce Willis nowadays. He's just a crazy man. He's one of these actors that walks around thinking that he is the people that he plays.
Oh, right.
Like he plays a badass. I'm pretty sure he's not a badass. I'm pretty sure, like when you're abseiling off the sides of buildings and you know diving off the wings of hovering jets and things like that. That's green screen shit, right? I'm pretty sure that's not real.
Pretty sure.
But yet he acts like that when he's interviewed, and Kevin Smith tells some pretty funny stories about it. So yeah, the Looper didn't work for me, and one of the problems I had with it was him, and the fact that the young version of him, I'll show you a picture of him. You'll know him as soon as I show you an image of him. This guy over here. They stuck a big Bruce Willis nose on him. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, this guy.
Oh yeah.
He was in. He was in Inception. He's actually been quite a few Christopher Nolan films. Christopher Nolan likes to use him quite a bit. He did Inception, the Batman one I'm talking about. He played a young Bruce Willis in Looper, because Looper's all about time and travel and shit like that, right? But they stuck this big, weird nose on him all the way through the film. And when you do a bad prosthetic, that's all you can see. That's all you can see. There's no narrative anymore. I got Bruce Willis to look at and this idiot with the big prosthetic.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the last thing that I'll mention, and it's totally unconfirmed, is there is an untitled anthology film to follow in 2021, I think it is, or 2020, and that's the one that's unconfirmed as a title. Now, it could be an Obi-Wan story, maybe before he became a Padawan, or the time in between where he dropped Luke off and he became an old man. But apparently Ewan McGregor's keen. He's interested in helping write it and all sorts of stuff. There's just weird releases are based around Ewan McGregor. That there seems to be something going on there. And Ewan McGregor's voice was used in the flashback, in that dream sequence thing from Force Awakens. They used Ewan McGregor's voice in there. So I think there's a connection with Ewan McGregor and Rey.
Okay, I thought he did a pretty good job, despite the movie sort of sucking and surrounding him. You know,
he was the only thing that held it up.
He did
the
a
original
good job.
trilogy.
I thought he was very believable as the young.
Without Ewan McGregor,
yeah.
How bad would they have been?
Oh yeah.
So yes, or it could be a Yoda film. No, a Boba Fett film.
No.
The big money's on Boba Fett.
No, none of them. None of them. Boba Fett's already had his thing. So's Obi-Wan. They've already had the thing. If they're going to pull out Lando and dust off Lando, it's got to be Princess Leia.
It could be. It could be.
Princess Leia hasn't got her.
She's been in the lore since day one,
and she hasn't got her background in Luke. You know, and all of those guys. Maybe not Luke so much. Well, yeah, Luke in the new ones, I suppose.
I'll lend you my copy, my graphic novel of the original There's an original graphic novel that's been created. I think it was created recently. It's beautiful artwork, but it's a graphic novel of the original script.
Oh, right.
Where it's General Skywalker and Chewbacca was this big sort of lizardy looking thing, and
cool.
And it tells the story very differently, but it's so many of the elements are there. You can see where the decisions have been sort of slightly bent and things like that, but all the story is there. And she's all the way through it. Like the Leia story has always been there in the lore.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably it for me.
One last thing before we leave. Are you aware that Red Letter Media has done a new Star Wars review, sort of Rogue One and The Force Awakens?
Oh, have they?
Yeah, they have.
Red Letter Media, for those that aren't aware, you can best describe them.
Red Letter Media, film review crowd, a bit like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
They've got just a bit more oomph behind them. They actually have a set, and they put in a lot of effort into their stuff. Yeah, this is it. So they did probably
237,956,856 things you missed in the Rogue One trailer.
So they're all obviously having a bit of a piss take about those 5 incredible things, stupid videos.
These are the guys that do like commentaries and things like that after having copious amounts of alcohol.
They did a definitive breakdown of the Phantom Menace, which has just got like millions upon millions of views. I don't know how many it is, but it's like impressive millions of views. And then they did the other ones as well, and it's just so spot on. They're just so accurate with their observations and what they say. It's really, really good.
It's very entertaining. All of their videos are very entertaining. But you're right.
There, the Star Wars
The Force
Awakens review.
Oh yeah. Mr. Plinkett.
Yeah. So they have
at least one of their characters that they roll out to do these reviews and things like that. And once you get past the comedy, they're actually bang on the money.
It's a characterized review.
Yeah. Are these the guys that you were telling me that when you look at any of the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6, and compare them to 1, 2, and 3, you can pick any character in 4, 5, and 6, and you can describe their character.
That's one of the most insightful things. They've got loads of them. There's more of them on there, but one of the most insightful things.
But you can't do that about any of the characters from the first one.
And they did the experiment. They went and interviewed people, and they said, describe C-3PO's character. Not what he does, not his job, not what he looks like, his character.
He's nervous, he's fearful, he's stuck up, over polite.
Prissy is another one that comes up.
Yeah.
And you can do that really obviously for C-3PO, for R2-D2, for Han Solo. All of those guys stick out like a sore thumb. They've all got these spikes of obviousness in their character.
Yeah.
But if you go and ask that about Obi-Wan, what is it that Obi-Wan does? Yeah. And they interview people and they're like, which one was Obi-Wan again?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's the, or Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that's what they said.
Qui-Gon.
Which one was he?
Obi-Wan's a hard one because people can remember some of his traits from the original prequel and bring them in. And you can't do that because he wasn't the wise old man. He wasn't the patient, that spoke only enough that you needed to hear and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
He was totally different. Yeah.
And people can't describe his character. They say he's stern, was the one thing, the best thing they could come up with. Stern. Yeah. Princess Amidala is exactly the same. She's just this
feisty
robot.
Yeah.
She's just like immovable.
Yeah.
Confident, maybe. Yeah.
And I thought that was quite accurate and profound. So definitely check out Red Letter Media. Their videos are very entertaining. And they drink way more than we do. So I'll hand it over to you, sir, because you have been looking into some technical stuff, and I will try to drive some graphics to accompany your...
All right. So, as we do on the show, we're kind of just really reporting on some of the things that we've been getting into and having a look at and interested by. And so we were doing... drone racing and other robotic-y type things. And so one of the things that I've been looking at recently is quantum computers. Quantum computing and quantum computers. So I've been having a bit of a look into it, and so I wanted to, bring a few things that I thought were pretty interesting about them onto the show and have a bit of a chat with you about it. I suppose what I wanted to do is start at the end and have a look at actual quantum computers, because they do exist now, and then kind of jump back in time. This was my plan. Jump back in time and just sort of try to understand how they work, because there's some freakiness that goes on to make them work. All right. So I wanted to jump back in time and then kind of just to try and understand a couple of principles that underlie, the mechanics of how they work. So throw up quantum computer. In fact, if you just change the search, so we're looking at something right at the moment, but change the search. You want to type in D-Wave quantum computer. Just add D-Wave to the search.
Or one word?
It's
or
D-dash wave. That'll do.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll do.
Is that this
is the thing? This is good enough. So if you're at home...
So we're looking at something the size of the TARDIS.
This is how I was going to explain it. Exactly. It looks like the TARDIS.
It's even the same colour. And some nerd's painted that blue deliberately.
Oh, if some nerd hasn't, we have to, actually. Remember that. Try to remember that somehow. Yeah, anyway. If you're at home... what we're looking at is a D-Wave quantum computer, which is the D-Wave is this group of people who are making quantum computers, and they make them and then they give them to people, or sell them to people, I assume, so that they can test them and start working out what the hell can we do with this thing now that we've invented it type stuff. So what I first wanted to do is to explain what it looks like. Yeah, it looks like a giant big blue TARDIS. Yeah. It looks like a friggin' TARDIS.
Yeah.
So it's this giant big blue box about the size of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 fridges. And then it's got some other stuff attached on the outside. So that other stuff is some sort of powery connection filled with wire stuff. The actual action happens inside the big blue box, inside the TARDIS, which is kind of apt actually for what we're about to be talking about.
The inside does way more than it looks like on the outside. Which is the TARDIS. That's right. I love the way they've got the glowing, like there's a marketing spin to the device as well.
Yeah, so it's got these big neon D-Wave, sort of things on the side of it. So why is the box so big is the first question that we need to puzzle upon and solve. Now we've got some shots of people marching up and down. This is at Google or somewhere or other, or Boeing or something or other. They're installing these machines and they're getting their computer boffins to start monkeying with them, right?
Yes, there's one image here, Google's quantum upgrade.
Yeah, Google's. Now this is going to be kind of important later on, because Google's one of the big
backers?
Well, yeah, but they're also going to be one of the people that are going to use quantum computers quite a lot. So why is it such a big box? It's such a big box because, like the TARDIS, you have to fit things inside.
Yep.
But what you actually have to fit inside that big box is 4 physicists.
Large physicists, small physicists.
Yeah. 4 large physicists actually have to fit in there.
This is not a. This looks like somebody's
just
built a home PC to look like it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. Your own PC with D-Wave written on the side of it.
Yep.
So if you go back to those pictures and see if we can get an inside of what's inside this crazy box.
Let me just throw this back up here. We'll see if we can find something. I think it's this. I think it's this big brass-looking array.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find one. And it is this. I think this is inside it.
There's one up there. That one is probably the better picture.
This one?
Down one from that guy.
Okay. It looks like there's a lot of space.
That's right. There has to be room for 4 physicists to stand around inside there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally, and scratch their chin, and because this is a prototype, right?
Okay.
So they have to go in there and they have to monkey with it and get out their spanners and whatever they do, right? Their screwdrivers, and they have to do that stuff. So that's why it actually has to be that big.
Something very Wizard of Oz about that.
Yeah, there is. That's
Build a box, but make it big enough because we've got to put humans in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Scratching their heads. We're making a computer.
Yeah, really? Or is it just a bunch of physicists who are like...
Yes. What is the sum total of...
4.
I can hear 4 people in there with iPads.
So for those of you at home, inside our D-Wave quantum computer, it looks like there's this kind of cyberpunk, steampunk stalactite that's hanging from the ceiling, and it's just this kind of multi-platform.
Looks like a tiered. It looks like a brass tiered wedding cake upside down.
Yeah. And it's got wires and stuff on it, and it's got layers, and then it sort of protrudes down into the center of this space inside the box. Now, if you have a look up here and some of the other pictures, that's the very end of that towery thing.
At the tip, at the bottom.
Right at the very tip.
Yep.
And there you'll see there's a big solid brass looking box thing.
Yeah.
And inside that is your quantum computer.
And when we're saying computer, are we saying the computer is the CPU? So is that
we're
the
saying
CPU?
the chip.
Okay, it's
the CPU,
chip.
the chip.
And we're talking how many magnitudes faster than what's sitting in these laptops right now?
Okay, so we've just kind of discussed what it is and kind of what it looks like and kind of what's going on here. So yes, now here's my next question. Rather than me answer that, can you answer that question?
Absolutely not. Like quantum.
What is so? What I suppose I'm saying is, can I get an impression of what's your impression of a quantum computer? What does it mean? What's it all about?
Quantum to me, without ever looking into the definition of that word, means huge leap, like massive amount.
Okay,
that's quantum to me. But then that falls apart when you talk about quantum physics, because we're not talking about massive amount physics.
Yeah.
So the dictionary definition, I've never looked up.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
No, that's fine. I'm just curious as to what you might have, what impression you might have, what vibe through osmosis you might have picked up on what's
it's
this
almost
all about,
like
right?
It's almost like a word you use for the unreachable. You know, it's
Okay.
like the thing that's over there that we're not likely to get to soon.
Okay, like a quantum leap.
Like a quantum leap.
Right. Okay. But of course, that's not
But a
what
quantum
that's
leap
not
in-
what the quantum is referring to in the quantum computers.
Okay.
Not a distance,
Right.
in that sense. It's referring to quantum mechanics, is what it's referring to.
So, define quantum for me as it relates to quantum mechanics, because
Well,
I've heard that term a lot without really questioning it.
Okay, so quantum is just like quantity.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so and quantum really means a quantity of one. I suppose is really what it's a unit or something or other. So, so really what it's talking about is quantum mechanics, which is the what it's referring to is quantum mechanics, which is the behavior of our atoms, how atoms behave.
Here's a dictionary meaning. Physics-wise, it's a discrete quantity of energy proportional in magnitude to the frequency of the radiation it represents. You see, that makes it so much easier now.
Yes, it makes it so much. But what it says here, discrete quantity.
Yeah.
That's what quantum means. It's one.
Yep.
And what it's saying actually is that the energy is quantized. It's not a... it comes in little tiny packets is really what it's saying. It's little blips, blips. That's what it's saying.
Yep.
As opposed to some sort of stream of energy, like a lightning bolt or something. I don't know what, but...
There's another meaning there which is not related to physics, is a required or allowed amount, especially in an amount of money legally payable in damages. The court, and the example is, the court must determine the quantum of compensation due.
So it's kind of referring to the same
So it's a
sort of
quantity.
thing. It's a quantity.
It's a quantity.
Quantum. Cool. Okay, so so there you have it, right? So
So what is, when we're talking about quantum computers, are we talking about the size of the bits?
the bits inside.
No, the bits, as in
Okay.
bits, like bits.
No, we're not talking about the size of the bits.
Okay.
However, we do need to talk about the size of the bits.
Okay.
Right now,
Bits, not the pieces.
the bits, not the pieces.
Yes.
We'll talk about the pieces later. Let's just keep this simple, right? All right. So a chip is made up of resistors, made up of little switches, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And when you knit a whole bunch of those switches together, maybe 10 or 15, you can, because they're logic gates and or, you know, 1 0 0 1 1 0.
On off.
On off,
Yep.
right? You can knit a whole bunch of those together and you get yourself an adding machine.
Yep.
Okay, so you put in two values at the top, and what comes out the bottom is the sum of those two values.
Yeah. Because a computer will always ever be able to do 7 things: add, subtract, multiply, divide, greater than, less than, and equal to.
Yeah,
they're a calculator.
Yeah,
Programming is how we get them to do what we perceive them to do, but really all they're doing is evaluating using the mathematical equations of a calculator.
And as we were talking about with the Foonly F1, right, which was a 11 kilohertz or 11 megahertz,
which we could physically hear,
which we could hear. Yeah. That's its frequency. That's how fast it's doing each of those little calculations, right? And so a PC today is up in the gigahertz range, so it's just like way off the scale compared to the 1980s computer.
Average home computer is around 3.5 to 4.5, something like that, gigahertz.
Yeah.
Processor.
Now, the next thing is that those little switches inside the chips, inside your computers, are now pretty damn small.
Yeah.
They're very, very small.
Well, they're pretty damn small, and they also get pretty damn hot.
They get pretty damn hot? Yeah, that's right, because we're trying to force more and more electricity into the smaller space, I suppose.
More, and they're going
faster and faster and faster, right? But those switches are so small, they're smaller than, like, cells.
Oh, really?
They're smaller than like a bacteria. They're made out of molecules. All right.
What, in this or in the home PC?
No, regular in your PC.
Cool.
That's how they cram so much stuff onto a chip.
Yeah.
And the way that they do that is they do that with light etching.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they draw a picture of a circuit board, with textures.
Yeah.
And then they put that in front of a projector.
Yeah.
And then they focus the projector down. Yeah. And then they just burn the shit out of something.
Yeah.
And that's your little circuit.
In the pattern of that design.
That's your circuit. And that's how they make them so small.
Cool.
But they're starting to get down to, they're now down to kind of molecule size.
Yeah.
Right? And cells are like made out of molecules. Right? So they're kind of reaching the limit. It doesn't get much smaller than that. All right. So this is a quantum computer chip over here, and so here's kind of some of the things about it is that the quantum computer is not going to be faster than what you've already got sitting on your table right now. All right, it doesn't make it faster.
It does more of the fast things.
Yes.
At the same time.
Well done.
Yeah.
It does more of the fast things.
Yeah.
So if you take a classical computer. Let's change it to an analogy. Take a classical car. Classical car drives up and down the road, has an air conditioner and all of that sort of business, but you can only fit 4 people in there.
4 people, yeah.
But a quantum car would drive up and down the road. It still has an air conditioner and a radio, but you can fit 16 people inside.
At the same top speed.
At the same time, and it's the same speed. So what we're looking at here, there's the chip, and the chip is inside that little box.
Which dangles at the bottom of the upside-down brass Christmas prop.
Cool. Now, the reason for all of that shenanigans is that inside that little box there, it's like 0 degree. Well, not 0. It's like 1 degree Kelvin.
Okay.
It's like
super cold.
Super cold.
Yeah. Which is very important to quantum computing.
That's right. It is. It's critical. In fact, it won't work unless it is like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, that box that surrounds it, not only is it a nice little house where physicists can
fridge.
They can go in there and have a smoke or something or other when nobody's watching.
Yeah.
It's also shielding from electromagnetic fields.
Yeah.
End result is at the end of that prong with all of those wires and all of that stuff down there, some of those wires are there to control the chip, but other ones are there to control the environment. All right, so it has to have no electrical fields hassling it and no temperature. It has to have 0 temperature. And then you've got yourself a chip. So these exist right now. These are not super big, so these are like test chips, and they don't really do anything. All you can do is try and work out how to use them. I gather is what the deal is.
Yep.
All right, so
we could use this for mapping DNA, mapping genome type stuff.
That's right. Now,
like big packets of data that need calculating.
Yes.
That it's the same. It's calculating at the same speed, but because there's such a big volume of things that need to be calculated, that's where this comes in handy.
So yes, if you had a classical computer and you got a thousand chips by 1,000 chips and somehow stuck them on a board,
Yep.
you'd kind of have the same thing as what a quantum computer can do, but it can do it with one chip.
Yep.
So, what can you do with your quantum computer? Nobody quite knows just yet.
Well, you could search every document on the interweb, couldn't you?
That's right. You can
Hello,
search
Google.
That's right. And that's why Google's got them.
Yeah.
Did you know about this before, or
No,
are you
well,
just riffing on the?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit, and I know that I know about supercooling
Okay.
and how to and that it's like subatomic involvement. There's subatomic involvement as well.
Yeah. Quantum particles, essentially.
Yeah. I read somewhere once that there is an anti-gravity component to some of the early experiments that they did with the supercooling stuff. That there was an old professor smoking a pipe in this supercooled room, which is probably just fable.
Yeah.
But they found that the smoke, because smoke is inert, it's not like it's supposed. If you blow out cigarette smoke, it just hangs in the air. It doesn't raise up.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't. It just
Neutrally buoyant
just
or whatever.
neutrally buoyant.
Yeah.
But as it floated over the supercooled
Right.
components, it was raising up, and it prompted discussions about anti-gravity and those sorts of things. But this was about 15 years ago, and it never went anywhere.
There's certainly some bizarre stuff that happens with magnets and things.
And I also know that we're very close to running into a major problem when it comes to the components of computers because of the heat thing. When you get it to do things at a certain speed, and I guess that's where this is sort of going to help us out, because the speed is not that important if you can kick off 4 billion processes at the same time as opposed to 1 million. Speed is not that important. Like
Yeah. No,
it's the amount of.
It's the volume of things that you're doing simultaneously. Yeah,
simultaneous calculations.
Parallelism, I think, is one of the words that used.
Because they can't find it. Silicon is what we use at the moment to. That's the main component that the signal, the little electric charge that opens and closes the gate, that heats up, and when it gets to a certain heat, it snaps. Because we have to make them so fine, we've got to get as many as we can on there.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole lot of scientists out there looking for alternatives to silicon.
Yeah.
Including growing them, like cellular, like live. And I remember seeing one documentary about a scientist that was found out to be making the whole thing up. He found an organic thing, and he ended up in all the journals, and everyone was celebrated. But this one guy said, "That doesn't sound right," and I'm not seeing any of his supporting shit. And we're celebrating this guy as this because he opened the door to this future where we can process faster. Because at the moment that heat is the problem. Like you got to send the electricity down something, so it has to be conductible. And it has to be so small that you can have a lot of them, but if it gets to a certain temperature, it snaps.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, he was full of shit. I think he was a Russian guy or something. Yeah. There's this bell curve. They're all trying to invent this thing so that when they're looking for a bell curve, when they put it through a series of tests, they get this. They're looking for this magic bell curve, and he was the guy that found this bell curve. That instead of it going snap like this, it went up and stayed steady.
Okay.
But it turned out to be all bullshit.
There's other problems as well. For example, you know how they etch. We were discussing how they etch the chip. I think they have to go to higher and higher and higher frequencies of light to do that etching.
Yeah.
And eventually they hit X-rays, which means they then just go straight through and they don't etch anymore.
Yeah.
So there's these type of problems.
Yep.
All right. So there we have it now. So we've got classical computers and then we've got quantum computers, and how are they different?
Yep.
So this is what I'm going to try to discuss next. So we have to understand a little bit about the quantum world, and I find it pretty fascinating what goes on in the quantum world. So Yeah, so I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. And ultimately what we're going to build up to is qubits. Right. Have you heard of qubits? No. Okay, so a classical bit is what we're talking about, is that little switch inside, and it can be a 1 or it can be a 0.
Yeah.
Inside a quantum computer, it uses qubits, which are quantum bits. And the thing about quantum bits is that they're 1 and 0 at the same time.
Really?
They're two things at the same time. And this is why they get their exponential ability. So if you just have, one sort of, if I can explain it this way, 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, or 1 plus 1 plus 1, you have all these sort of sequential bits lined up. You can do calculations and stuff, but you're limited. But if you're using the qubits and you have a load of them, like 8 bits, you get exponentially more. It can hold exponentially more information. Mm-hmm. So if you only have 2 bits, if you have 4 bits, I'm not explaining this too well. They can either be 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0, and that sort of limits the amount that you can have, the amount of possible results stored in those switches. But because the qubits are 1 and 1 and 1 and 0, 1 and 0, 1 and 0, it becomes exponentially larger. Mm-hmm. So if you have an array of, say, just 512 by 512, and each of them multiply together, and they multiply and they raise to the power of 2 or something like that, you then just have a chip that can store a staggering amount of information, because it can do this parallelism, where the chip itself, because it's an array, it's not just all of the bits in it are in all of the different possible combinations that there are.
Yeah, it's exponential.
It's exponential.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, I don't know, if you could imagine a combination on a safe, you could go 3, 4, 7, 9 on the spin dial, but a quantum one would be all of the combinations simultaneously.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is kind of how the power of these quantum computers comes about. All right, so we've got some stuff up here on the screen about these qubits. So what I wanted to do is just kind of discuss these things a little bit. Mm-hmm. I've been watching Richard Feynman. Are you familiar with Richard Feynman?
I've heard the name. What's he most famous for?
Most famous for lots of things, actually. One of them is working on the Manhattan Project.
Oh yes, we spoke about that. No.
That was something different. That was the ship. What was it called?
What was the Manhattan Project?
The Manhattan Project is where they're inventing the nuclear bomb at the end of the Second World War.
Yes.
So he's one of the physicists that are working on that. Mm-hmm. And actually, I want to have a chat about him later on as well, because
was he grabbed from? Was he a German scientist?
No, he wasn't. He's an American guy, but he was a student at the time, pretty much. And so anyway, he was grabbed. And then something that's important is that he's an important sort of connection in all this, because when working on the Manhattan Project, he has to do all these mega calculations to work out the yields and the explosiveness and all of these factors that they had to make the bomb work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's Richard Feynman. And so he has to kind of invent all of these computers that he has to do all this stuff with. Mm-hmm. And there's a really good talk about his days on the Manhattan Project and how he's solving these impossibly huge, data sets and sums and stuff. And all he's got are these kind of hand-cranked machines and people looking up tables in books. It's the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
Anyway, ultimately, he has some ideas about quantum computers, but he does a really good talk about the quantum world and how freaky it is. And I'm going to steal one of his stories. Okay, one of his stories. The other thing about him is he's a really interesting guy. Really good educator, a really good explainer of things, and I'll steal one of his stories to show you that. And used to play bongo drums at strip clubs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's freaking cool. Like at the Manhattan Project, right? There's another one of his stories. They've got Oppenheimer and Niels Bohr and all of the top guys, and they're building the bomb, and there's security everywhere, and as a kind of a challenge and a personal challenge to himself, and also a way to kind of stick it to the man, and also a way to test the security, all three of these things at once, he starts breaking into the safes and the locked drawers and things of his fellow scientists. Just because he's a bit of a genius, and he reckons there must be some way that I can break into their, you know, he gets into safe cracking.
Crack their codes.
Yeah, because that's what he spends all his life doing, cracking. So as a hobby, he breaks into safes, and he could get into the safes of the other scientists. Anyway, fascinating guy. All right, so here's his story. His story is about the Mayans. Mm-hmm. So we have to sort of understand this story to understand the quantum world a little bit. So the story is about the Mayans, and the Mayans look out their window and they look up into the sky, and they see that some of the stars, but not all of them, are cruising around in the sky. Mm-hmm. Now, we know what they're seeing is Venus and Mars and all of those guys. Yeah. To them, it's just stars moving around. And so what the astronomers of their day do is they look out their window and they scratch a little line on the windowsill where Venus is in the sky, and then they start counting. Okay, and they have a bunch of pots in their observatory on their Mayan temple, a bunch of pots, and every night they observe Venus, and if they see Venus at this point, they put like a pebble in a pot. And they say, do this for Mars, and they do this for thing, and then they've got some dude who goes and counts all of the things and then writes them up in a big table. And after doing this for 200 odd years, they have a fantastic way to predict where Mars is going to be in the sky.
They've got a data set.
They've got a data set.
Because they did data entry.
They did data entry and they got a data set, okay? And it works.
Yeah.
And but you've heard of the Mayan calendar, right?
And with that data set, they can project.
Exactly. You've heard of the Mayan calendar that people were like,
2012.
Yeah, those guys got it going on. You know, they knew the world was going to blow up in 2012. You know, it's really just
they just ran out of pebbles.
Yeah, that's when they ran out of pebbles, exactly. Anyway, so we got those guys. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. They can predict the Mars perfectly. They can predict Saturn and Venus. They know when it's going to come up, when it's going to go down. But they don't have a fucking clue what Mars is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is Feynman's point. And in one of his lectures, he says, if you come up to one of those guys and you said to them, you know what? I reckon that dot up there is a big ball of dirt. And it's like here, but it's over there. And it's a long way away. And it's whizzing around the sun. Right? And those guys would say, well, so what? Can you predict when it's going to come back next Tuesday?
Yeah.
You know, and you'll say, no, I kind of don't think I can. Well, and then they'll say, well, you know, your answer's useless. That's not going to help us at all. All right? So they could predict, but they couldn't explain. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are with quantum mechanics.
Cool.
Right? And Richard Feynman's quote, I think, is anyone who says they understand quantum mechanics doesn't.
Yes. I like that. That applies to so many things.
Yeah. So some other interesting things just to kind of get the ball rolling is that, as explained by some other people, the quantum world is weird. Oh, we think it's weird, and it's only because we've never had experience with it.
Yeah.
We have experience with shopping and cars, but we don't have experience with subatomic particles, the things that make up. So when we see them behave, we think, well, that's weird and freaky, and I don't like it. Yeah. But they're just doing what they normally do, and you know, it's us that has to adjust. Okay. We're going to take one step forward. And we're going to go to Newton. So, Isaac Newton. Now, there's another cool piece of trivia. Isaac Newton's first, and I understand, his first qualification is a Bachelor of Arts. This is important now for us because we're artists. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of funding cuts going on for art and stuff. And it's a good reminder that Isaac Newton's first qualification is that he was an artist, meaning that he's a creative person and he can paint trees and stuff.
Yeah.
But then when he looks up into the sky, he does creative things and comes up with creative ideas because he's a creative artist type person. Mm-hmm. And he comes up with gravity, right? So he invents gravity. He doesn't invent the fact that things fall to the ground. Everybody knew that. Mm-hmm. But he tries to explain it. So he's going to try and do a similar thing to what the Mayans were doing. You know, he gets all of this maths, but he's going to try and go one step further and try to explain what's going on. And what the theory of gravity essentially says is that things that fall to the earth are the same reason that things fall to the earth is the same reason that the moon goes around the Earth, and the moon, the sun, the planet goes around the sun, Earth goes around the sun. And this freaked a lot of people out in his day, because they would say something like, well, how? That's pretty freaking weird. Are you telling me that the planet Earth can somehow make the moon go round? How does the moon know what to do? And, and old Newton would be saying, well, I've got all these numbers here and all these beans in pots, and it explains that this is what's happening. They just shut up. And people are like, yeah. Because if you had the explanation that it was a bunch of flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz that were pushing the moon, people might understand that a little bit better. But just to say, like, if you took an object and you let go of it and dropped it, how does it know to go down instead of up?
There must be some weird voodoo and control going on there.
That's right. Yeah. And so people were freaked out about it. And this is called action at a distance. Yeah. So, and there was always this bit of a confusion with people. It's like, really? Because in this world right now, if we want to move anything, we have to touch it. Yeah. You have to push it or whatever. And it's like, really? The moon just goes around the Earth because it knows what to do? It's like, come on. That's crap. All right, so it's spooky action at a distance. Next, we move forward to Einstein. Einstein's the guy who advances our trek down the Mayan thing, and he invents, his explanation of how gravity works, and this is relativity, right? And what Einstein says is that there's a field that pervades everything, this space-time, and it's a stuff, it's a thing, and the Earth squishes it. And that causes the moon to be influenced because it's sitting in the space-time as well. And when the Earth squishes it, the moon gets pulled towards it, and that's what explains gravity, right?
Via an equation.
Via an equation, yeah. More beans in pots, right? All right. So he explains that. So we're getting there. We're just about to arrive at quantum mechanics. So at about the same time, quantum mechanics is invented, and Einstein's involved in that. But Einstein, for all his genius, is still stuck in the classic mindset. All right? So he's still kind of in that mechanical mindset that comes from Newton, and that is the deterministic mindset. So that things happen for reasons, and, when you push something, every force has an equal and opposite, and it's all logical and it all kind of works. Okay, so he's kind of in that mindset, even though he's invented all this freaky stuff, equals MC squared and stuff. So there's another guy, Niels Bohr. And Niels Bohr basically comes up with a bunch of quantum mechanics stuff and says that, so I summarise a lot of stuff. I think that quantum particles, and I'm really bastardising the explanation here, I reckon they just do stuff for no reason at all. For no freaking reason at all. There is no reason why a particle... Let's imagine that a particle has two properties. It can either have, let's say, its heads or its tails. Or it could be up or down, or rough or smooth. It's called heads and tails. A particle could be heads or a particle could be tails. And there's no damn reason why it is this one over that one. It's random. It's completely random, and there's no reason, there's no cause. It's not that way for any... There's nothing that made it that way. It's just, it will be one or the other, because that's what these quantum particles do.
Yep.
And this is where Einstein steps in and says, come on, it's a load of bullshit. It's making crap up. And this is where his famous saying comes in, that God does not play dice. Okay, meaning that there's no random shit. There's reasons. If you push a thing, it bounces a thing. It's not like these things just bounce for themselves. They just suddenly bounce for no reason. That's crazy. That doesn't happen. And so Niels Bohr, in response to God does not play dice, responds with the quip that Einstein should stop telling God what to do.
I love it.
All right. So we're getting there. We're getting there. So the next thing that happens is that Einstein goes back to wherever he hangs out, and he sort of mutters to himself this. Because what he's seeing, what Niels Bohr is saying is that these things happen for no reason at all. And what Einstein is seeing is spooky action at a distance. Yeah. It's the same problem that Newton was facing, where he said the planets go around the thing, and they just do. And people are saying, oh, fuck off, come on. And so he's in the same boat.
He's saying here everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real. If quantum mechanics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet.
Yeah. And that's another important statement about the reality of reality. How and he's saying this radical, freaky thing that just freaks people out and says that these things, they're not real. It's like the fundamental thing that underpins everything is not real. It's like, come on, what?
And then we start to talk about definition here, don't we? Like, you have to define real, don't you?
Yeah.
So what is it?
That's what we're trying to get to. Yeah. And perhaps if you're thinking of on a meta level, is that these particles, as I was saying, they have these random properties, and that might be what you consider real. The fact that. All right. So Einstein goes away and broods a little bit, and he gets together with some of his mates down the pub, and they decide to write a scientific paper. And the scientific paper is designed to stick it to Niels Bohr. All right?
Yeah.
And so he writes this paper, and it basically says, well, Mr. Niels Smarty Pants Bohr, if what you say is real, then I'm going to give you a absurdity. If a bunch of stuff happens and a bunch of other stuff happens, then something else will happen, and it'll be completely freaky, and it'll be weird and strange. And that's impossible because that's just too stupid to be real. Therefore, you're wrong, and I'm right. Screw you. Okay, so this is a scientific paper. And what he's talking about is quantum entanglement.
All right.
And it's actually Einstein that comes up with the idea of quantum entanglement. Have you any awareness of what that is? No. Okay, so Einstein comes up with the idea, but he's doing it to stick it to Niels Bohr. And he's going to say, well, this is impossible, right? You idiot. All right. And then, of course, in 1956, some dudes decide they're going to build a quantum entanglement machine. Yeah. And it fucking happens.
Love it.
All right. So what the quantum entanglement is I'll try and explain this super clearly. Is imagine you had a laser beam, a freaking laser beam, and it has 10 laser power, and you shoot it at a piece of matter, and what happens is 2 little light photons come out, and each of them has 5 power and 5 power because you've shot at 10 power. You can put one in a bottle and put one in this other bottle, and then you can take them away and spread them apart. But these things are now quantum; they're entangled because they're kind of born from the same. So they're entangled. And what you can do is you can open your jar, and we're going to look at the heads or tailsness of them. And you have a look at yours, and it's like tails. And you go, okay. And then you say, you write that down on a piece of paper. Meanwhile, there's somebody in another part of the world doing the same thing. You get your next jar that comes out of the machine, you look, and it's tails. Next one, tails. Next one, heads. Next one, tails. Next one, heads. Next one, tails. And you do that 10,000 times. And you realize that it's exactly 50-50. And there's no way to predict whether it's going to be a head or a tail. You don't know.
But you can predict that it'll be exactly 50-50.
And it turns out, after you've done 10,000 of them and you add up all the probabilities, there's exactly 50-50.
Yeah.
Then what you go and do is your compadre over in the other side of the country has been doing the same experiment. He's got the same results. It is exactly 50-50, except it's all the opposites. So when you check it, open it up and have a look and it's a tail,
it's a head over there.
It's a head over there. So now there's the Bohrian interpretation, Niels Bohr, is that it's random. It's completely random, but somehow they're always the opposite, but it's random whether it'll be this one up, one down, or one down, one up.
Yeah. And you can't know.
Yeah. Now, Einstein says that no, there's something inside these particles that when they come apart, that there's this hidden thing inside them that will decide. For example, one way it might happen is, and this is a fairly stupid way to explain it, but it sort of highlights the issue. Imagine that the one particle has a mobile phone. So it flies apart with its buddy, and it says, all right, they're about to look, we have to be either one or the other. I'll go heads, you go tails. What do you reckon? Yeah, cool. Yeah. And then they work out their deal, and then they do it.
Like, potentially, they were never really separate. They're still potentially. What you're saying is there's still a connection, potentially.
This is what we're trying to understand, right?
Okay.
But there's a problem, and this is the problem that Einstein points out, and this is where he's sticking it to Niels Bohr, and he says that if you instantaneously check here and here, there's not enough time for any information to get between the two, because the fastest it can go is the speed of light.
Yeah.
And so it can never communicate fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So Einstein, Mr. E equals mc squared, Mr. Speed of Light says, see, it's impossible.
And then he turns around and says, who says that speed of light is the cap?
Yeah. Do you have the right picture? Stop telling God what to do is what Bohr is saying.
Yeah.
So we have the two interpretations. Is it like Niels Bohr says, that it's always random, but just somehow by some fucking reason, they always do the opposite, but it's random?
Yeah.
Or is it what Einstein says, is there's something that perhaps when they get created in a special way. All right, so, and we're now getting close to the end. A guy called Bell comes up with, surprisingly, Bell's inequality. Mm-hmm. And Bell's inequality is a logical kind of a mathematical, type it in, Bell's inequality. Bell's inequality. Comes up with this mathematical way of predicting whether the particles are truly random or whether they've got a hidden variable inside, whether they've got a secret code where they're talking to each other. And I won't try to explain this because it's complicated and it's impossible to explain verbally. You have to sort of see images to explain it. But that means that when you do the Bell's theorem, when you do the experiment with the quantum mechanics, you can then detect whether it's going to be random or whether it's. And so another guy, so this is John Stuart Bell. So no physical theory of local hidden variables can ever reproduce all of the predictions of quantum mechanics. So if his theorem is violated, the Bell's inequality, then it means that there are no hidden variables. If there are hidden variables, when you work out the probabilities, you'll get a particular bump. But if they're not, it'll be a flat curve. And they go and do the experiment, and they do it 100 times, they do it all over the world, and there's no bump. So what that means is that there's something weird going on, that somehow these particles they're entangled together, and you can take one across the other side of the universe, but they're still connected together instantaneously.
Yep.
And it doesn't make a lick of sense, right? And we're back to where we were with the Mayan bean counting dudes, is we can predict it's either going to be this or that, and these will be the opposite. That's the rule.
But we have no idea what it is.
And we have no idea why that happens. Okay, so we're almost there. What the kind of answer is what's called superposition. And a superposition is a new word to invent a new state that nobody's familiar with here. You don't have a cup that's in a superposition. It's in a position, right? The mouse here is in a position. The superposition means that it's not in any position, and it's also in all of those positions. And that's what the superposition is. So when you take two of these particles and you split them apart like what we just discussed, they're in the superposition. That means that they're nothing. They're not either of anything until you look. And then something has to happen, and it will be either up or down, and the other one will be the opposite. Another way to think about this superposition is we've got an election coming up in the US. It's like, who is the president right at the moment? Is it Clinton or is it Trump? And it's like, none of them are president at the moment. We're in a superposition. All right, and only at some magical time will the random thing happen on a particular day, and then it'll be one or the other. Okay, so this is basically what quantum computers are working off, is this superposition, and so that's why that's how qubits are made. They're superposition particles that they don't even kind of exist at all. This is super weird, right? And they're in both states, and that's why you can have a chip that's in all possible states, and that's the kind of power that gives you the power in your computing, right? So I'll give you a last analogy, and then I'm pretty much done. So imagine if, and this is kind of my best analogy of how the computing works. Imagine if you had a hill, and it had rocks all over it, and you're a landscaper, and you had to build a path from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, and you have to take the shortest possible distance because you don't want to do much work. And the people who walk up and down the hill, you want to have the easiest time going up and down the hill. So what you could do in the classical world is you get out your tape measure and you measure the first rock, you measure the second rock, you compare the two rocks and find which is the biggest rock, and then you check that this one's the smaller rock, so I'll remember that. Then you measure the third rock and the fourth rock, measure all the rocks, then you start comparing the rocks, and it takes for friggin' ever because you have to go up and down and up and down and back and forth. How to solve the problem in the quantum world is you just wait till it rains. And then this river forms. And somehow magically, the river knows the best way to get down. It just knows. And it doesn't have to measure anything. It just goes down the most probable. So this is we're talking about probability.
Is this chaos? Is that chaos theory?
We're sort of touching on chaos theory, but this is why some of the quantum world is described the way it is. So the river takes the most...
of least resistance.
That's one way to explain it. Or you could say that it's the most probable way it should go down.
Yeah.
Right?
When all the factors are present and calculatable.
And you could solve the puzzle of how to get to the bottom of the hill and build a path as a landscaper instantly after it rains.
Yeah.
And
so you can't build a path to the top until the path... The easiest way to build a path to the top is to wait for it to build itself to the bottom.
Yeah. So you don't have to work it out. You just wait for the water because the water somehow knows how to do it.
Yeah. I like it.
All right. And so that's kind of how quantum computing works. And that's why Google want it.
Yeah.
Because what they'll do is they'll set up a landscape on the chip that represents a gigantic a data set. And like the water going down the hill, the qubits will form themselves into the most logical, most probable way. And then you suddenly read that off, and that's the answer.
And then you have the pattern. You can read the pattern off that.
So that's that. What'll be left is all of the names that start with B in the data set. And that...
And how it got to that is most likely to be the most efficient way.
Yes. And so this is what this is the final answer to the question, what quantum computers will be good for is large data sets, pathfinding, right? Designing things when you've got 1 billion different options and you're trying to find the best one for some circumstance. So it's not about...
Well, it's sometimes the answer you're looking for can only be reached when after you've processed 1 million other things to get there.
Yeah.
This system, the way you've described it, is the most efficient way to get to that answer fast.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why it's like putting 16 people in the car instead of just having 4 people in the car. It's this sort of parallel where you're doing all of this simultaneously, and then the primary, you've set it up so that all the B's will be at the bottom, and you just sort of shake the quantum computer and all of the B's turn up on the bottom, and then that's your answer.
Does it replicate? Like if you try to track the flow of water, does it not find a different path the second time through? Yeah.
So the quantum computer won't find the answer instantly. It'll find a pretty good answer. And so calculations that might take 1 million years, it still takes the quantum computer a while, and it has to give you lots of different options, and then you sort of go, yeah. Oh, this one's probably the best one. Or you use some other filtering mechanism to refine that small set down to the final.
Yeah. Or
you pump it back through the machine and keep iterating on it.
So Google would be able to almost patent those patterns.
I imagine so.
And own them.
I imagine that would be the programming of the... That's the program.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So,
and this is the stuff we know of. We don't know what's going on in China at the moment, and they're apparently working on some pretty speedy computers.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
It's not likely that their quantum computers look like the TARDIS. But man, the rat hole that you go down to try to make sense of the universe is pretty incredible, isn't it? And it's not to be understated the breadth of understanding that you require to make sense of it.
Well, like those guys were saying, if you understand this quantum mechanics stuff, you don't.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's a bit of tongue in cheek there.
Because,
because even to understand that statement, you got to understand it, you know, to a certain degree. The more you try to understand it, the closer you get to not understanding it, which is ultimately the goal. Because you can't really understand it.
No, you can't really understand it because it's so amazingly abstract from anything you're familiar with.
Yeah.
There's no milk bottles, there's no TV shows, there's nothing you can compare it to. That's why we're scratching around and saying, well, the quantum world's kind of like a TV show with a milk bottle on top, but it's nothing like a TV show with a milk bottle on top. You have to use these pathetic analogies to try and explain.
Another
guy I was watching was explaining it as like a smoke dragon. He was saying that these particles, before a decision has been made about what they are, he just describes them as this smoke dragon, which is the way he imagines them. Is that they're these non-entities that are, and like you saw Niels Bohr describe it as things that aren't real.
Well, for the first time in my life, science has been explained to me in a way that makes me understand how people can believe what they believe in the opposite direction of science.
What do you mean, like magic and stuff?
Religion and dinosaurs walking around with us 10,000 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because part of the theories that you just went through was that at some point one guy said, "It's not real.
Yeah.
It's fake.
Yeah.
It's a smoke dragon."
Yeah.
But we're supposed to, we've common sense will tell us that we have to put our weight in that person because they're proving that scientifically through mathematics, through equations, through through trying to disprove it.
Right?
Which is good science, right? But it's not much of a leap, is it? When you think about some of the stuff that religion talks about, just to make sense of.
It certainly starts to get pretty close. Yeah. Another interesting thing that
because the moon moves.
Yeah.
Right. The scientific explanation for that can sound, if explained accurately, can sound as mad as the religious version.
Well, let me give you two other things. One is the many worlds interpretation, the many worlds hypothesis, and that is that every time these atoms are in superpositions, and when they make a choice, because they're in all possible positions, there's a kind of a theory a hypothesis, not a theory, that all of the possible worlds exist simultaneously. So there's another world where both of you, except I've got blonde hair and you've got brown hair, right?
Multi-dimensional.
And that sounds like, are you crazy? That's insane. That can't happen. But you have to say, the Niels Bohr thing. Don't tell God what to do. Maybe that could happen. Maybe that is the thing. The other interesting one that I wanted to just sort of perhaps finish with was another one from Richard Feynman, who pointed out another interesting thing. What if you've got two scientific explanations for things that both work? They both match up with the math, and they both explain the data.
You can do that.
You can do that, but what his point is that then science is in a bit of a quandary because how are you going to choose one over the other? So let's say we have monkeys, invisible monkeys pushing the moon around, and that you've got all of the facts and the figures and you've got all of the math and it all works out, invisible monkeys, and then you've got the gravity saying, no, it's just this force of gravity, and it's actually that the world is made of kind of this power soup that sort of dips in the middle, and you've got power soup with a dip in the middle versus monkeys pushing it around, and both of them work, both of them predict where it's going to be, And then, Feynman's explanation, Feynman says they're equivalent. Even though the monkeys sound strange, it's a good explanation for what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But you can't really distinguish the two as to choose one over the other if they both do the same work and they both do the same job.
Yeah. Especially if they only exist as theory. Like, if you're not physically looking at monkeys doing it, right, as opposed to the other...
But Feynman's point is that's already taken care of.
How do you mean?
Because the theory says that you can't see the monkeys.
Yeah.
That's part of the theory.
Yeah, convenient.
Convenient, true. But you can't see the space warping space-time either.
Well, yeah, can you? I thought they were able to... They proved the warp in space-time recently. Didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Gravity waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure our monkeyologists will be able to say, yes, that's just the monkeys farting, of course.
Absolutely. But that would swing it back the other way, wouldn't it? But either way, it's not uncommon to have multiple theories that perfectly explain the same thing in the absence of observable data.
Richard Feynman's point is that a good physicist or whatever keeps all of these crazy theories in his head because they may be explanatorily equal, but they're not inspirationally equal. Right? So if you think about the space monkeys, that might give you another idea to come up with something else, whereas the gravity soup idea is just boring to you and it doesn't inspire you in any way. So that's what his point is, that's why you keep all of the crazy theories in your head, because even though they explain everything equally, what the difference is, one might inspire you to ask a new question that develops something else.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I now sort of understand quantum computing, but I also sort of understand a whole bunch of other stuff that I hadn't contemplated before as well. And the fact that they're all sort of tied together and interlinked, and one sort of leads you over here to that, which leads you back here. But out of it all, the thing I love the most was was Einstein. Basically coming up with the theory to go, sort of spoilt little shit turd.
And he's such a genius that he unconsciously comes up with something. Yeah. It's freaking amazing, isn't it?
And geniuses can be smart asses, you know. And you never know. They might not have gone on with one another. You know, he might have made it his personal thing to stick it in his back in his face or something.
I hyped the antagonism. I think they were pretty good mates. But anyway,
cool. Yeah. All right, well, that's it for another show. What about a call to action?
No, I've got something different. I've got a cool quip, a witty quip to end on.
Yes.
So we've just been talking about learning, and we've been talking about exploration. Okay, so my witty quip is, if you know it, don't do it.
Is that a boggle? Are you issuing a...
No, it's a simple thing just about exploring and learning. If you already know it, don't do that.
Oh, okay. I like it. I like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's it for us. Until next week.
Yep.
Bye for now.
See ya.